Hello, I'm Mohsen Jamal and you watch Afghan News. Afghan President Hamid Karzai Saturday launched an official visit to Saudi Arabia upon the invitation of King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. During a two-day visit, Karzai will meet with Saudi Arabia's officials and discuss issues of the regional security. Karzai is accompanied by the Ministers of Energy, Foreign and Internal Affairs. At least 4 people were killed and dozens wounded on Saturday in a suicide car bombing outside a bank in the southern Helmand province. An official said the bomber detonated the vehicle at the New Kabul Bank in the provincial capital Lashkargah, said Deputy Police Chief for Helmand, Kamaluddin Sherzai. 4 civilians were killed and 21 others, 10 army soldiers, 5 police officers and 6 civilians were wounded in the blast. Dawood Ahmadi, the provincial governor spokesman, said, while a security official who requested anonymity said that as many as 8 people had been killed in the bombing. The soldiers and police officers were collecting their salaries at the bank at the time of the blast. A Taliban spokesman, Qari Yusuf Ahmadi, claimed the group was responsible for the attack. 6 members of an Afghan family were murdered in southwestern Afghanistan, police said Saturday. The killing took place in Zaraj city, the provincial capital of Nimroz province, on Friday night. The provincial police chief said. Abdul Jabbar Purdili said that the family of Niaz Muhammad was murdered overnight by unknown men who attacked his house, killing 6 members of the family and leaving only one 3-year-old child alive. Purdili added that Niaz was a clothing merchant in his late 30s, and the cause of the incident seems to be a criminal act due to personal enmity and is not related to insurgency. A United States senator visiting Islamabad said Friday he is pressing Pakistan to reduce the flow of an explosives material used in roadside bombs that won't and kill hundreds of U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan. Senator Robert Casey said in a conference call that his talks with civilian and military leaders, as well as senators, focused on having Pakistan implement its strategy to cut shipments of ammonium nitrate or fertilizer. He said the strategy to reduce the flow of ammonium nitrate into Afghanistan involves better law enforcement, greater Pakistani public awareness of the threat posed by the chemicals, tracking the material better by dyeing it a certain color, and better border interdiction. Casey, chairman of the Senate Subcommittee on Near Eastern and South and Central Asian Affairs, said last year 368 U.S. servicemen and women were injured or killed by the improvised explosive devices. Some 121 Americans have been killed this year by IEDs, he added. At least 26 Pakistani soldiers were killed on Saturday when militants from Afghanistan raided a security post in northwestern Pakistan, a security official said. The attack targeted the Arindo checkpoint in the Chitral region that borders the Afghan provinces of Kunar and Nuristan. Commandant Chitral Scouts Colonel Harun Rashid said that 400 to 500 Taliban targeted the security post guarded by the soldiers of Chitral Scouts and local police, adding that the government forces retaliated and killed 12 militants. Pakistan and Afghan border forces have in recent years exchanged fire, mainly due to the tensions over Taliban attacks from their Pakistani bases into Afghanistan. Pakistani Taliban fighters who fled to Afghanistan in the face of army offensives have joined allies there to regroup and threaten Pakistani border regions, analysts say. Libyan rebels have defeated Muammar Gaddafi loyalists at a border crossing with Tunisia, seizing control of a key checkpost that could open much-needed supply routes into the country. Rebel forces raised their flag late on Friday on the Ras Ajdir border post in a win that will allow them to bring in supplies and aid to the capital Tripoli. A step-by-step rebel onslaught has pushed most of the remnants of Muammar Gaddafi's army to southern outskirts of Tripoli, but his forces were still resisting in other areas of the country. Elsewhere, British warplanes struck a large bunker in Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte on Friday as NATO turned its attention to loyalist forces battling advancing Libyan rebels in the area. The United Nations, the African Union, the Arab League, and the European Union have expressed concern and urged all sides in Libya to avoid reprisals. EU Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton said on Friday. Syrian forces killed at least 3 protesters on Saturday as tens of thousands of people marched again to demand the removal of President Bashar al-Assad. Activists and residents said the three were killed overnight when government forces fired live ammunition to disperse demonstrators who streamed out of mosques in the town of Qusair and in Latakia after Al-Qadr prayers, the night when Muslims believe the Prophet Muhammad received the Quran. At the United Nations, a US and European push to impose Security Council sanctions on Syria over its crackdown on protesters met resistance from Russia and China. Diplomats said Assad has sent in tanks and troops to crash months of street demonstrations, calling for an end to his family's 41-year rule. Syrian authorities have blamed armed terrorist groups for the bloodshed and say 500 police and army have been killed, while the United Nations says his troops have killed at least 2,200 protesters. India's parliament has begun debate on an anti-corruption bill at the center of a hunger strike by a high-profile activist who is seeking tougher action on graft. Saturday's debate comes as the besieged government of Manmohan Singh, the Prime Minister, struggles to address the concerns of Anna Hazare, whose strike on its 12th day has seen tens of thousands of people joining him to express their solidarity. Pranab Mukherjee, the finance minister, began the 7-hour debate on the 4-decade-old legislation, but a vote on a final bill, which Hazare has demanded to end his fast, looks unlikely. Hazare, 74, has become increasingly frail, drinking only water to stay alive. As the man's long anti-graft movement he leads gains momentum. Saturday's special session of Parliament was expected to extend late into the evening, with members of all political parties expected to speak. In that hurricane, Irene has spread inland over southeastern North Carolina in the United States Atlantic coast, triggering emergency preparations that included unprecedented mandatory evacuations in Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York, and Boston as the massive storm approached. Washington and the states from the Carolinas through Maine declared emergencies due to Irene, a nearly 960 kilometers wide hurricane that forced 55 million Americans on the eastern seaboard to prepare for aid that experts say could cause billions of dollars in damages. A hurricane warning was in effect from North Carolina all the way to Massachusetts, while million people were ordered to evacuate ahead of Irene's arrival on Sunday. Officials called up hundreds of National Guard troops, shut down public transit systems, and begged hundreds of thousands of people to obey evacuation orders. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta said the military stood ready to aid in the response to Irene, with more than 100,000 National Guard forces available if needed in East Coast states. And that's all for now. Thanks for joining us.